button does its thing. It says we are live.
Did it really?
It
One
does.
more time.
One more time. One more go around the TeaFlix.
Hello, folks.
Good morning. Good morning. So today we are super thrilled to have the triumvirate of blondes, we shall call ourselves. We are going to welcome METAlliance member, record producer, and audio goddess Sylvia Massy. February will see the whole gang of multi-Grammy winning producers who make up the METAlliance that we'll talk about in a bit, making their off-Broadway debut in their Spilling the Studio Tea, or dare we say off the record, as it says on one of Sylvia's ads, show. It's called Studio Confidential at the Sheen Center on Bleecker St in the heart of New York City. Sylvia is an award-winning music producer and recording engineer with a decades-long discography, which you won't believe when you see her face because she's only 12, that covers a wide variety of musical genres. She's best known as the producer of Tool's first two albums. She said Tool. But has also worked with artists including Prince, Johnny Cash, System of a Down, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Taylor Hawkins, Jason Isbell, and many, many others. Sylvia's bold, unconventional recording style is illustrated best in her book, Recording Unhinged, Unconventional and Creative Music Recording Techniques. After years in Hollywood, she currently works out of her Pacific Northwest audio shop, which is an Atmos 9.1.4 equipped mixing and art studio where she owns the world's largest collection of vintage microphones, over 2,500 of them.
Good heavens.
Treasuring some of the most rare and interesting historic microphones ever seen. Sylvia is also an accomplished fine artist, often working on paintings during her recording sessions. Look for her commissioned posters as part of the NAMM convention promotions. They're extremely detailed illustrations, often containing vignettes drawn from experiences of studio life. So as far as Studio Confidential, these 7 crazy people live on stage, get your tickets fast at studio-confidential.com because these events will sell out. Once you hear all of the legendary folks involved, this will sell out fast. So without further ado, please welcome Miss Sylvia Massy. Hi, Sylvia.
Hello, Sylvia.
Hi. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. I know you and I have had a couple of Zoom calls with all the fellas once upon a time in the METAlliance world, but I'm so glad we get to focus in on you today.
And I have never met the doctor.
No,
Dr.Angie.
Doctor's in.
It's funny. She's got the doctorate. My name's Ruth. It should be the other way around.
Dr. Ruth.
So tell us, we were just hinging on your microphones. Where on earth did that get started as a passion? Because clearly with over 2,500 of them, it's a passion.
Well, being that I record for a living, I would have my own collection of microphones. They're good tools in the studio. And I would get only the microphones that I could really use. But there came an opportunity to write a book about microphones, and the publisher, we got a budget for it. So I started going around the country and visiting museums and factories. And then in Europe, I visited factories. But I found a museum. My husband found a museum in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And it was a fellow named Bob Paquette who had collected since his childhood. And so he had thousands of mics. And I went there to study his mics and take some photos, and really was blown away. And then recently after that, he passed away, and his son contacted us and said, "Hey, can you help us to sell this collection to the right people?" They wanted to keep the collection together. Oh. And my husband, Chris, he found a way to bring that whole collection home, and we've kept it. We bought it. We had to pay it off over several years, but we managed to get it all paid for. And now we have a huge collection of mics that are not only just production mics, like for recording sessions, but are historic and meaningful and represent like the growth of technology in the United States and the world, and communications across the world. I mean, this is a very important collection. So I'm super excited that we've got it here, and we've kind of built the facility so we can display a lot of them.
That's fantastic. Yeah. When you think about actually, just drilling it down to the microphone without some of these actual artifacts that you have, there are speeches that wouldn't have been broadcast, speeches we never would have heard, right?
Oh, goodness. Yeah. And the importance of some of these mics. We have a mic in the collection that was used on an Antarctic expedition by Admiral Byrd to the South Pole. And they took this mic. I have to go grab it. Can I just go grab it?
Absolutely.
It's really exciting.
Isn't it fascinating?
Yeah,
when
wonderful.
I was just, when Martin was creating the McCartney AI, the Verified Voice Vault project, and we had all of those clips of Queen Elizabeth and Martin Luther King and Ronald Reagan saying, "Tear down this wall." You never think about the microphone that actually captured and transmitted that, do you? But you do now.
Well, here's this microphone. This is an RCA. It's a 4A1, and it's a condenser microphone, and there's a bunch of tubes inside this case. So they brought this all the way to Antarctica, and they broadcast from the South Pole. Several broadcasts actually. So this is the mic that made it. This is the first mic at the South Pole.
Good God, that's
How
incredible.
wonderful.
I mean, they must, presumably they had it in swaddling clothes in its own container, its own box and everything, right? Because
I hope so. Well, there's photos. There's actually photos of it being used. So
wow.
Yeah, they were in a tent somewhere. It must have been very cold.
It's not like, whoops, we dropped the mic. Just somebody whipped to Best Buy and,
Get
Well, there's so many tubes inside this mic. They probably huddled around it to keep warm.
Probably, yes. No, absolutely. We have a dear friend in Germany, Billy King. And when Martin and I tied the knot in 1998, he's a musician and a producer, and he'd been going back and forth to the former Soviet Union, as had I as an artist. And he managed to score a bunch of Neumann U87s, and he gave us one for a wedding present. So
what?
This
Yeah.
yeah, I know. I don't know what it's worth, but it's still working, and it's it probably will outlast me.
Well, that's a fine microphone right there that you got.
Yeah. So, Angie, let's pivot to your New York show, which is coming up shortly. We'll go forward and then we'll go back.
Okay.
Yeah, well, yes, you and all the METAlliance guys will be in New York shortly, won't you? What makes this gathering particularly timely right now? There's, music production is moving so fast.
Yeah, as a group, the METAlliance, we meet every Sunday, the 7 or 8, or sometimes we have guests, and we just meet and talk about the industry and what we're working on. And it's a fun group, and we laugh, and we share these stories about our history in the studio, because the members of the METAlliance have recorded some of the greatest records and really familiar music that you would know. So like George Massenburg, he recorded the Earth, Wind and Fire hits. Yeah. And Elliot Shiner recorded the Eagles and Steely Dan records. And he's got stories. Oh my God. Two big hits from Steely Dan were actually written about him. So we're just hooting and hollering every time we get together on Sunday, and it just became really obvious. Well, we need to share these stories. So how are we going to do that? Well, Elliot figured out how we could get a residency in New York, and he's making it happen. So George and Jim Pace and Elliot are all putting this show together, and we're all on board. The METAlliance. There will be 7 of us on stage, all sharing stories, like the stories about Elliot and the Steely Dan, and I've got stories about Prince, because I worked with Prince for several years.
Right.
Oh, I got stories about Prince.
I bet you do. Have you got one you can share on here? That's
yes, it's a little naughty.
That's okay.
That's all right.
Naughty's okay. Okay,
absolutely. Yeah.
I was working in Los Angeles and as an engineer and an assistant engineer, It was about 1990. And my boss said, okay, we got a big booking. Yeah, I was working at the studio, and it, these bookings come in, and some of them were really big artists. So Prince booked in for 3 days, and it was on the schedule, and he had not worked at the studio before. So my boss came to me and said, you make sure he stays more than 3 days.
Oh, I wonder
Make
what
him
that means.
comfortable, right?
Hello.
Okay.
Okay.
So this is my job, and I was going to assist the session or do whatever was needed for the session. Okay. So the first thing, when Prince comes walking in the door, and he comes in a big whoosh, and all these people come in with him, and they're all standing around in the studio, and he looks around and he says, don't you have a big old grandma's chair that I can sit in, like a upholstered chair? Because
Like
all we had were these
Like a throne.
yeah, well, like a throne. And he said, all we had were these office chairs. And I knew that's all we had were like office rolling chairs. But I said, of course, yes, I'll just go and get it right now. So I ran out and I ran to the office, and I said, someone give me a key to their truck. And I grabbed the truck and I drove over to the nearest antique store I could find. And I bought a big old chair and I threw it in the back, and it took about 20 minutes. I was running and brought the chair in. I had some help bringing the chair in, sat there, and he looked at it and he sat in it, and he looked around and he liked it. And so that was the beginning.
Good start. Yeah.
He wound up staying there for 3 years. So,
Well done.
yeah. But one of my favorite stories, and it's a bit naughty, but okay. So Prince would give me tapes and say, okay, here's a song that I recorded. I want you to mix it. And he would have his people send the tapes. He wouldn't actually hand me these things. We never knew when Prince was going to show up. He was very mysterious.
He was just a lookout guy. He just locked out the time and showed up when he showed up.
He locked out the time, and when he shows up, he shows up.
Nice.
And there's always someone waiting, and that would be me in this case.
Right.
So he
asked you to mix something.
Oh yeah. So he asked me to mix this song, and it was a long song. It was like 7 minutes long. It was slow, and it was super sexy. Like, hey, baby, what I'm going to do to you tonight, and all this stuff,
Right.
Yeah.
And okay, it's a good, sexy song. And so I worked on it for several hours, making the perfect balance, making sure his voice was affected perfectly, and just laying it out. And I finished the mix, but he hadn't arrived yet. So I thought, well, I'll just keep working on it. Okay, I worked on it a little bit more, and then he still hadn't been there. So I was like, okay, I got to stop mixing, because there's a point in a mix that you can go over the, and then it gets worse, right? So I set it down, and I left the room, and I sat outside the room waiting for Prince. And suddenly, hours later, he shows up, busting in the front door, with all the, and he has a girl on his arm.
He has a girl on his arm. Okay.
Yes, and she's a very tall girl, blonde, beautiful.
Wow.
And they just both go walk in the room. He didn't really acknowledge me. I was sitting there, but he just walked in the room. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to follow him in, and I'm going to play the mix, and he's going to love it, and he's going to have me do all his mixes from here on out. And I followed him in the room, and I went up to the equipment to start, the tape recorder to play back the mix that I had done. And he looked at me, he says, I won't need you. And I was like, okay. So I went back out and sat on the couch outside the door again, and that was fine, because he could run all the equipment. He didn't need me around to run that equipment. Okay. So I could hear the song start, and I'm listening through the door, and I could hear, oh baby, what I'm gonna do, blah, blah, blah. And then I was like, oh yeah, that mix sounds great. Yeah, he's gonna love that mix. And then so the mix, continued in 7 minutes long, and it ends, and then it's quiet. And then I'm waiting for him to come out to tell me how great the mix is, and he doesn't come out. And then after, I'm like, what are they doing in there?
Oh,
What's going on? And
surprise.
then I was like, hey. And then all of a sudden they come busting out of the door, and their hair's all messed up, and his clothes are all disheveled, and they're all kind of
So that worked.
walked right out the door, didn't even acknowledge me or tell me anything about the mix. So
Well,
my
apparently
whole experience, I sat there all day mixing a song just so he could
get laid.
get laid.
We call that disheveled in the hair. We used to call it the JFL.
What does that mean?
Yeah, it's the just F look. Somebody'd walk into Stanley's like next to a record one or something, and we'd be like, oh, they've got the JFL.
That's funny. I'll remember that one.
Yeah. At my age, you don't have to remember it that often, but you know, hey.
Right, you don't remember it at all. Oh,
No,
well.
actually, Angie gets the JFL after brunch. It's the just fed look. That is so wild. So he locked out the studio for 3 years.
3 years. Yeah. So I got a lot of chance to work with him. I worked with him as a engineer and as an assistant and as a mixer. One time can I tell you another story?
Sure, of course.
Okay. One time I was assisting another mixer with Prince in the room, and the song was the song "Get Off." Okay, and it was that was a song that was released on the Diamonds and Pearls album.
Yep.
Well, we'd been working on that Diamonds and Pearls album for about a year, and it was done. And it was so good, and I was really proud of this record. And I couldn't understand why he was working on this song, Get Off, because he was intending to put Get Off on the record. The label, took the Diamonds and Pearls record and said, hey, you just released a record. We're not going to release this one yet. He was so prolific.
Oh, God, I know.
So he's waiting to be able to release his next record, and he's impatient, so he keeps replacing songs on this great record with other songs. And I thought, my personal opinion was that this song "Get Off" was not that good, and
Right.
I knew that it would be replacing something really good on that record. So I'm just sitting in the back of the room. It's not my place to tell Prince any opinion of mine.
Sure.
So, and as an assistant, the assistant is there only to prepare the session for the engineer, and then to help the engineer if they need anything. So I would go patch things in every once in a while, and in the back of the room while I'm waiting for something to do, I would bring my journal, and I would just jot things in the journal and draw pictures and stuff, and I'm sitting there writing in the journal, and I'm listening to this horrible song, and I'm like, here's Prince sitting on his purple phone, and he's taking a great record, he's ruining it with this song "Get Off," and I'm writing about how much I hate this song. And then the engineer says, hey, can you patch something in? So I set my book down, go over to the patch bay, and I'm working. It's on the other side of the room. And then I hear Prince say in his voice, there's Prince sitting on his purple throne. He was reading out of my journal. He turned right to that page, and he was reading it. And I knew I was so scared. Oh, my God. And I ran across the room and grabbed it out of his hand. But he had already read, the part where I didn't like the song.
Just in the song?
And I thought, what?
What happened?
Yeah. And so I just, I was shaking. And then he started laughing. And he laughed and laughed and laughed.
Oh. Phew.
He just thought that was so funny because no one ever told him anything.
Yeah.
Well, this
And-
is it, isn't it?
and,
With these,
Yeah.
with these big stars, you know, they are surrounded by either people who are on the payroll
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
or members
Yes,
of the
ma'am.
family. Yeah.
Yeah.
So did the song Get Off ever make that album? I can't remember the track.
Yes, it did. And it was a huge hit. So what do I know?
Well, Angie's got one of those stories.
Yeah. Yes, Paul
Oh.
came home to his dad's house one night in the middle of the night,
This is Paul McCartney.
McCartney.
Yeah,
yeah.
McCartney.
wakened us all up and said, come downstairs, we've just finished. I've got an acetate I want you to listen to. So he played Hey Jude, and we listened to it. And Jim said, oh, fabulous song. So what do you think, Ange? And I said, well, I like the song, but I can't stand all that bloody na, 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 na crap at the end.
Too repetitious.
I don't like repetition. So he said, oh, well, it's your opinion. And years later, well, quite soon after when it was released, it got to be the biggest single the Beatles had ever had at that stage.
Yeah.
And we had a party at the house shortly afterwards, and somebody said something to Paul about, so how do you feel about your latest hit? He said, oh, if it's hit you want to know about, ask this one. She knows.
Ask Ange.
She knows what's a hit.
Yeah.
Oh,
Ange said, you know, people spend good money on records and, you know, they're only making a couple of quid an hour. And, you
and
know,
have to listen
a
to all that na, 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 na.
they're not gonna, once they've heard it on the radio, you're not going to sell many because they're not going to pay for all that repetition. People work hard for their money.
Oh my God.
So yes, I'm with you. I know how to predict a hit.
You heard it here first. Oh my Lord. Carlos is calling you a tart.
Tart. I'm
You're
an
a-
old tart. I'm an old fart.
She certainly is. That's wild. And then, of course, the other guys, we've been privileged enough to see the video of the Greenwich, Connecticut show, and some of their stories are just legendary. I mean, Chuck with Vince Gill and Elliot getting locked in a safe by one of his artists until the check cleared.
And Jimmy Douglas talking about the edit on that Led Zeppelin song. The guitar solo. Everybody knows the guitar solo, and he edited that.
Yeah. That is just, it's absolutely wild.
Oh, I'm sure you do.
And it runs the gamut too, doesn't it? You've got, you know, Chuck Ainlay, who's Mr. Nashville and who's done so many huge country artists. And then George Massenburg, who's truly sort of one of the, I mean, you're all geeks, but George and his, you know, his brain of parametric EQ, and, you know, he can talk radar and music.
Yeah.
Frank Filippetti he's been on TeaFlix here. If you haven't seen either Chuck Ainlay, Frank Filippetti, or George Massenburg, go to our YouTube TeaFlix playlist and look them out, because you will get a real true sort of sense of what this Studio Confidential show in New York. Somebody's asking, what are the dates? It runs basically the whole month of February, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. Yeah. So especially Valentine's it's going to be a great date night. Valentine's runs all month. So come on down.
Yeah, absolutely. Studio-confidential.com. So speaking of studios, between AI tools now, immersive AI tools making it somewhat simple on the consumer end, but then immersive audio and Atmos on the technical end. There are ever cheaper home recording setups for wannabes on one side, but then you've got the 941 immersive audio. Do you think consumers are going back? And I hope this is a good question. I feel like real music lovers are going back to vinyl and listening to things that would be mixed in immersive audio, because we're all sick and tired of these MP3 compressed crap files in the white plastic earbuds that they're trying to dumb our brains down, aren't they?
Yeah. You know, the vinyl revolution is so much fun. I've got a ton. People send me so much music now, and it's fun to open up a package and get a new vinyl record. This is a band called Monolord that I produced a couple months ago, and this is how they release their records now. This is like the main release. It's so exciting because there's artwork on the covers again.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh,
I
yeah.
miss that so much. And
Right.
there's liner notes. You know, you
Liner
can
notes,
print out
yeah.
and yeah, it's a wonderful world again with vinyl. And immersive, I think, is still difficult for people to access. Besides gamers, it's you know, there's new development on delivery for Atmos in a physical form, and
Okay.
that I think will be a big advancement, as well as getting all the Atmos systems or immersive systems in cars, so that when we're streaming from into the car, that we'll be able to get immersive music. And I think people will get really used to that and want it all the time.
Yeah,
But right now it's still kind of a niche.
yeah. The Elliot Shiner did the audio design for Audi, didn't he?
Yes, he did. And so, yeah, he would be right in line for that kind of thing too. And I think Mercedes has gone ahead, Tesla, some other American companies are going ahead with immersive in their
So
cars.
for those of our listeners and viewers who, you know, we're throwing out words like Atmos and 9.4.1, do you have a little sort of primer on what, I mean, we know the difference between mono and stereo. Everybody
Yeah,
knows that.
right.
And then there was 5.1 surround sound, and a lot of people got those in the subwoofer generation. But can you explain in sort of layman's terms for me what the leap from 5.1 to 9.4.1 is, and where that sort of where that goes in your spatial?
Yeah. Well, the major difference is that you have elevation because the 5.1 was all on a level plane, but now you're immersed because you have speakers above. So imagine in your car, you're going to have speakers coming in from the top and from the doors and from the back. So you're going to have a you know, almost 360 kind of picture to immerse yourself in. So that's the biggest difference. I mean, this system here, I've got my left, right, and I still mix a lot in stereo. At the left, right, I got a center. You can see that Genelec in the middle.
Yep.
And then I've got some wides, and then I've got some sides, and then I've got backs, and then I've got 4 up above too. So
Wow.
yeah, it's really impressive. And boy, when you're mixing and the music is good and the mix is good, oh, there's nothing better than
Wired for sound, baby.
Yeah.
And then headphones. It's the headphones emulate the speakers in a room, and that's also really effective. And people can get into that pretty easily. The Apple has a great set of immersive headphones. There's other companies too.
And now iTunes are actually re-releasing some of the world's greatest hits in Atmos, right?
Yes, I don't know the details of that, but yeah, there's more and more coming out every day, and people are releasing their new releases are coming out with Atmos. At some point, there may be a reason to only release the Atmos, because you play an Atmos file on a regular system and it'll go down to stereo. It adapts to whatever system that you're playing it on. So
it's amazing technology. Yeah,
it is. And I'm assuming Atmos is kind of the hipster for atmosphere, right?
Yeah, Atmos is the brand name for Dolby's technology.
The famous Dolby.
Dolby. Well, I think probably it's better to call it immersive, and I shouldn't use the word Atmos because Atmos is very specific. But immersive is kind of the whole idea of this multi-channel listening system.
Our sister from another mister from Pennsylvania, Elizabeth, is asking, how did you get into the biz? You must have read my mind, because that was going to be Angie's next question.
Oh, yeah. Well, I was really interested in art, actually, college. I love music, but I wanted to be an art major. And but I found it to be very boring. I hung out at the college radio station. There was no music production or engineering classes anywhere in any school at the time.
Especially for girls, right?
Oh, yeah.
Well, for anybody, actually.
Right.
They did have a broadcast program. So
Oh.
broadcast uses a lot of the same equipment. And I got into the broadcasting and because of the college radio station, and I love the music, and I would draw their posters for their events.
Oh,
But
my.
then I started doing I
The
had my
audio.
own on air show and got
Okay.
into that. And after college, I continued to pursue it. I learned how to use the equipment to make commercials. So I started making radio commercials in San Francisco, and that was my job. I was a producer in San Francisco, very young.
Wow.
And then, but then I started in my own band, and so I would sneak into the studios late at night and do my own recording, and eventually playing that for people. They said, "Hey, that sounds pretty good. Can you do my band?" And then, so I would record other people's bands. I started kind of that way. It wasn't. I didn't go to school. I kind of half learned how to use the equipment and fake the rest. And
Wonderful.
career out of it. It's like it's a lifestyle, and I love it, and I'm so lucky I get to do this.
Yeah, it really is, because even though you may be in the same studio 3 years, you never do the same thing twice, one day following the next, because you just never know what's going to happen, right?
And you're meeting all kinds of people, and you spend a certain amount of time on something that is very important to them.
Yeah.
And you become friends, and lifelong friendships.
Yes.
That's right. Barry Coughing, our friend from Houston, Texas, he runs We Get Music, which is an independent artist streaming platform. I should hook you guys up with the new band produced. A birthday boy, belated one day. Happy birthday, Barry. He's asking about your opinions on, since we're talking immersive and not just the Atmos brand, have you got any thoughts on Sony 360?
Sony 360 is another style of immersive. And I haven't done any 360 mixes, but I've gone to Sony in London, and I've sat in their studios and listened to it. And the difference is that it's not only the flat plane and the up above, but it also has the sounds below.
Like a subwoofer used to be referred to.
Yeah, well, subwoofers are in the Atmos too, but there's more absolute 360, like you're actually completely surrounded with Sony. So there's some actual things that are a little better about the Sony system.
Interesting. Wow. So basically, I mean, what I'm understanding here as a layman, it sounds like the sound, the experiential add-on of the audio that you get when you go to either an IMAX or a well-equipped movie theater, but you can now get that at home, right?
Well, that's what we would all like to believe. Home, it's different because you have to buy a system,
right?
You're going to have to install speakers up above. I don't think people are going to do a lot of that. Some people will, but headphones are easy, and I think the automobile is where it's really going to.
That's very interesting. Yeah, I mean, most people in the Western world own either a pair of headphones or earbuds, but the death of the earbud will be a happy day in this house.
Me too. I agree.
They're uncomfortable. They're overpriced. I mean, what are they?
I think they're hazardous to your ear health too. Honestly,
yeah. I don't. I'm not a big fan of the earbud. I'd rather get it on a pair of like Nico. When Nico came to Germany to help me mix my record, 30 years ago now, we took him to the hotel. He flipped the suitcase open. He had a pair of motorcycle boots, socks and underwear, 5 clean white T-shirts, and 2 Yamaha NS10 speakers in his suitcase.
Took up his whole
suitcase. He travels with
That's
speakers.
A true engineer.
That's right. He's like, I don't trust them.
I believe it.
I don't trust them Krauts. I don't know what they're going to have in that BMG studio. So he packed his own speakers. It's just absolutely crazy.
Well, and it makes sense to me because, he knows those speakers. So take them with, Sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, but they took up like 2/3 of the suitcase, and right in the middle was, a clean pair of boots and some laundry, and that was it. It was just crazy. Again, those are
And
the kind of
that's,
stories.
that goes to show if you know if you work on your record with Nico 30 years ago and you're still friends today, that just goes to prove, you work on these
Yes.
people, you work on people's music. It's very important, and then you become friends for
That's right.
forever.
Well, yeah, we hung out and mixed a bunch of stuff and, did a bunch of music stuff together. And then when the internet was born and we launched McCartney Multimedia in 1994, phone rang and it was Nico, and he's like, "You reckon I need one of these website things?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Well, tell me how much, I'll send you a check, build it." So we built him his first website at neeks.com.
Oh, wow.
And I came up with the phrase, Nico Bolas, shortest name in Greek history. Bolas from the Greek, meaning up is louder.
That's beautiful. So when was that? 1994?
For 1994, yeah.
You were building websites in 94. Girl, you are ahead of the game.
From actual code in text edit, typing HTML, raw code.
You're a badass.
I kind of am a badass. It's nice to hear from a badass.
Oh, a badass.
Badass. So, studios they were once seen as endangered, but we're now seeing a renewed interest in intentional destination recording spaces. What do you think is driving that upswing? Because, young startups are now building. Do you think it's gaming? Do you think it's just the pendulum swinging back inevitably the other way? Is it a combination?
Gee whiz, I'm happy to hear all that happening, because there's something special about being in the pit. Yeah. But yeah, I get people coming. I had a band coming to my studio from Sweden.
Wow.
And it's a great way to get your focus, for one thing, as an artist, to leave your comfort zone where you're going to work on your stuff and never get it done, to go straight into a foreign area and have someone else tell you what to do.
Yeah.
And, it really helps to bring focus to a project, and you get it done. I think the best thing that I can say about the residential recording is that it's comfortable and it's long. You can be there long term, and you're going to walk away with a finished product. That's what we all want.
All right. Yeah, but I mean, once especially if you're, a young band and you're pulling your money together for a studio, I think there's that extra adrenaline, caffeinated, oh my God, we're paying by the hour, watch the clock, we better be on this, we better be rehearsed. I think the financial aspect of studio time also pushes the envelope a little bit.
Because they have to be prepared when they come in.
That's right.
It also exposes who's good and who's not.
Right.
Because you could be in your home studio and cover up every little bad note or
right.
Fumble, and then you get in someone else's studio, and then you're gonna expose yourself.
Right. Rich is asking, do you like personally doubling or tripling vocal tracks? Like, the Carpenters, for example, did lots and lots of layered vocal tracks. Is that a style that you like, or are you more minimalist?
I love layering, and yes, when I work with a vocalist, usually I'll have them do a pass, do another pass. I want like at least 4 times. Oh, there's four passes. And then I'll pick and choose the verse. Maybe I want to have a single voice in the verse. Maybe in the pre-chorus, I'll add 2 more on the sides to give it depth. And then in the chorus, I'll add more, I'll record all these parts so that I can work on the production later and decide what's going to be the solo part and what's going to have a group.
Interesting.
Oh, interesting.
So it's really like our regular viewers will know I'm a big foodie, and we manage PR and publicity for a bunch of Michelin star and James Beard chefs and such.
Ooh.
I often liken the music building process to the ingredients that you get determines the dish that you're able to serve at the end, right?
Yes, yes. Yeah, and what do you do when you don't have all your ingredients? I mean, what do you make stuff up at that point? Do you pick something up out of the cupboard and say, "Let's try this"? That's what I do in the studio. It's like, "Oh, we've got a big old hole in this spot of the song. What do we got lying around? Here, pick up this guitar, put a part in there." So it
Wow.
is much like a kitchen.
Yeah, it is. It really is. I swapped
Mhm.
for years. We ran fan clubs for lots of musicians, and when I started working with chefs, I was like, I just swapped people who make their money with guitars for people who make their money with frying pans. You know, same thing. Just take the guitar out and put a skillet in, and you're good to go. So, Andrew had a question about sort of the experience and the takeaway for the Studio Confidential show.
Yeah, at your New York event, what kind of conversations or takeaways do you most hope that your attendees, whether musicians, engineers, or studio owners, will walk away with? Have you got a code?
I think it's going to be just plain entertainment. Let's just have fun, and you'll hear stories that you never have heard before, and are a bit shocking and titillating and heartwarming at the same time. There's Frank Filippetti has a story about going to Africa and working with
Kalahari
group. Yeah, and they saw the Apollo. That's you have to hear the story. It's incredibly heartwarming, and so I think everyone's going to walk away with a really good feeling about the music that they grew up with.
Yes.
And let's say rediscover the music that they grew up with, that they thought they knew, and now they'll have a story to put behind it. It's really fascinating, and just like my Sunday morning calls with this group, it's just every time it's just like, holy cow, you guys are great.
Yeah. And I think METAlliance has always been about community and mentorship and sharing the knowledge through the generations. And I mean, how do you think that mission translates? And this is, I guess, why you're doing the show, because you want people to know that you care about the community and the mentorship and the history of music, because knowledge is everywhere, but wisdom's harder to find, isn't it? You can chat GPT something, but to be in a room with people who've lived it and breathed it.
And things have changed since a lot of these records were recorded. So there's a whole different scene to understand, and the different working technologies that have changed. And things may have been harder before, or they may have been easier. It depends on the perspective, but this show will give you a new perspective on that.
Yeah, when you think about, the Beatles, when they went to Decca and whatever, they drive all night in Neil Aspinall's van from Liverpool to London, 4.5, 5 hours, 6 hours sometimes, because the motorways didn't connect in those days. And they'd have to just peel out of the van, wash their faces in cold water in a gas station, and then go and knock out, like an hour and a half recording as an audition. Or even when they were making the records in the early days, they'd be doing 3 singles in a day.
Crazy. I think about that and what they were doing to build their careers. And, I have a perspective on the Beatles and how their writing evolved, because it seems like when they started, they were doing pop songs and covers.
Or on the floor.
Yeah. And very traditional kind of pop. And then they began to really explore. Do you have a perspective on that?
Yeah, I think what I've always said, to me as a child growing up sort of in the middle of the bubble, they started in a post-war world, right, in the late 1950s. America didn't discover them until 64, actually, February of 64. But they grew up in a black and white world, and they finished out in psychedelia and a blaze of color, right, and a blaze of glory. So I think they're writing, and obviously, experiments with fun stuff. Do not try this at home. That's not a recommendation. Eventually, so many things happened to them that they went from being 4 clean-cut boys in, black and white suits, and just every song had to be 2 minutes and 15 seconds and no more, to once they had made their money. And don't forget, they spent so much time with each other. They were in the same plane, the same train, the same van, the same hotel suite. Something had to give, and other influences had to creep in. I think it was George at first who started to discover Indian music, and that sort of, crept its way into their writing. But having
Rubber Soul, I think that, as I'm thinking of the records in the progress, it's like Rubber Soul seemed to have some of that hint of psychedelia.
Yeah, we had a guest on a few weeks ago. I said to somebody, if there were a brand new to the Beatles, let's say they just landed from Venus, where would you start to introduce somebody to the Beatles? And he said Rubber Soul is a good
Rubber
place.
Soul. My first record in my life was Revolver. And if you look at the cover of Revolver and you look at my artwork, you can tell I spent a lot of time looking at that cover. And that the music on that record also was fascinating and made me extremely curious. How did they do that? Tomorrow Never Knows. What are those sounds? They sound like weird birds or something. What is that? And it was that was a catalyst for me to really dive into music. And I have to thank the Beatles for that.
Well, and Klaus Voormann was a big, influence on their whole world.
Yes.
He's still alive and kicking in Germany. We had him about 10 years ago now. We did a whole week's worth of shows in Obertauern in Austria, where they filmed the ski scenes for Help. And we had a Beatle band called the Backwoods from, where are they from? Czech Republic or?
Slovakia, Slovenia,
Slovenia. We had Frida Kelly, who was Brian Epstein's secretary, who ran the Beatles fan club. She came and did an evening with and a talk with her film Good Old Frida that Angie's in. And Klaus Voormann came with his artwork and did a whole exhibition and talk and whatever. So we filled this little Austrian town in the middle of March of 2015 for the anniversary of the filming. And there's a funny story behind that. When the Beatles arrived, so we'd all been to the Bahamas, and we were there at the filming of the old Bahamas coming out of the Caribbean. Then they flew off to Austria, and as they arrived, they flew to Salzburg, London, then Salzburg, and then they drove to Obertauern, which is in the middle of the Alps, it's in the middle of nowhere. And all of the people were facing away from the motorcade. There were fans, but they were looking in the opposite direction. And the Beatles were like, well, this is kind of weird. Why, if they've come to greet us, why aren't they looking at the limo? Well, come to find out, 5 days later, after they left, it was finally released to the news that there had been 10 days earlier, there had been a deadly avalanche, and half the village had been, destroyed and buried.
Decimated,
and they called all of the people of the village out to be on the sidelines as they escorted the Beatles into Obertauern. And if any of them saw anything, they were to yell avalanche and turn the limo.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So they were facing away from the Beatles to look at the hillside to make sure there was no snow coming down.
Yes,
amazing.
Yeah, and John Lennon remarked, he's like, "What, do they hate us here? What the hell are we doing here? Nobody's looking at us."
Nobody likes
normally
us,
the
yeah.
fans want to wave, but that was the reason they put the citizenry of Obertauern on avalanche watch as the Beatles were there.
Wow.
Like
What
crazy.
a story.
Nuts,
Wow.
right? I know. Crazy. So how long is the event in New York? Is it like an hour show or an hour and a half, or just
I think it's
depends?
a couple hours. I think there's an intermission in the middle.
Okay.
Yeah.
It just depends on if you guys get on a roll, right?
Yeah, and also we'll have interaction with the audience and probably have guests. some guests
Oh,
coming
good.
too.
Oh,
So yeah, some surprise guests to join in the conversation. So it should be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
That'll be wild.
Yeah.
So Angie had a question, because METAlliance is all about mentorship and whatever, about the younger producers coming up, or the young engineers who want to be producers.
People that, are raised entirely in the box. What are
Yeah.
the important lessons they can only learn by working in a real room with real people and real equipment?
Well, I suggest that they start with the microphone. Okay. Okay. You can find a microphone. You can find them at thrift stores, but start with the microphone and see if you can get a good recording. If you're all in the box, maybe you don't even need to record with a microphone, but try recording instruments. Try to record, let's say, sounds that you can turn into beats, right? It could be anything. You could make these sounds. I used to slam the car door and record that. Okay, that's a great snare sound. Okay,
wow.
Slam the boot. That's a great kick drum. Take those sounds and start manipulating those sounds in with your software, and see what you can come up with. And then and it doesn't take much to be able to record. You need to have a way to get into your computer,
right?
But that's a good way to start.
I'm going to be going around banging teaspoons and forks on everything in the damn household. That's the name. Martin's up there engineering this broadcast. I can't see him, but I can tell he's rolling his eyes. I heard a up there. Yeah, no, I think curiosity. That's the drawback to these digital audio workstations, or DAWs as they call them, because you can literally just push a button and get a triangle or a tambourine or a this and that the other. But it loses the magic. Again, it's like the difference between real, good speakers or good headphones and these earbuds we were talking about. I think if you create all these sounds digitally, they're flat, right? They don't smell right.
You can take digital sounds and you can push them out into an amplifier, into a speaker in a room with a microphone. And you know what? They sound three-dimensional. If you just push it out of your computer into the air and record it in the air and then put it back in the computer, just try that. You'll be surprised at how three-dimensional those sounds will become.
That is absolutely fascinating. I never even thought about that. So tell people tell us if they want to come and record with you. How does that process work?
Well, I'm in Ashland, Oregon, and my husband books the studio, so you have to contact him. But I don't know, if I like the music, we'll work together. I think, And
your website, the shop at least, is going across the bottom. What can people expect when they go to shop.sylviamassy.com?
Oh yeah, that's the audio shop, and that is a collection of equipment. When we bought the museum in Milwaukee, it came with a lot of extra equipment, like radio equipment, some old military equipment. So we've been selling it off, and that we sold off a lot of that to pay for the collection of mics and keep the mics. So there's still a lot of that on the website, some special meters and transformers and such from the radio days, old radio. So yeah, and it just continues. And then I sell my artwork on the website too. And the website is kind of a whole bunch of things. So,
but are people able to book a ticket and come and see the microphone collection? Do you?
Well, not really. It's not open to the public yet. But if you just write us and say, hey, I'm in town, can I see it? We're going to invite you in for sure.
That's wonderful, because I think that would be it's a whole nother business, and it's a whole schlep and a whole insurance and liability issue. I know that, but just the idea of being able to visit a museum of all this incredible equipment that is responsible for recording not only, as Nico likes to call it, the soundtrack of our lives, but also, important messages like from Antarctica. Good God.
Yeah. And all, if you think about it, the world and the world's leaders, and whether they're good or bad, have power in the microphone. That's
they do.
That's how it happens. So, like in Germany, like here's a German mic. There were some loud mouths in Germany yelling into these things.
Wow. Yeah, they're the sort of the carriers, the transporters of history, aren't they?
They really are. They really are.
I never forget when Nico, again, was working in Studio A at Capitol Records, and I were texting about a web project or something, and he's like, "Oh, I have a lunch break. I'm at Capitol." I'm like, "Oh, I'm out in Hollywood with Angie." He's like, "Oh, bring Angie by. I'll get
stop in."
It was when Al Schmidt was still with us, and he said, "I'll get Al's assistant to go and bust out the Sinatra stool and the Sinatra microphone." Do you remember sitting there?
Oh, I do. Yeah, big thrill.
Yeah,
fantastic.
So there's only so many of those left in the world, and I'm so glad that you're preserving them, and I'm so glad you're going to be telling stories about them in New York with the rest of the crew of the METAlliance. And you can find tickets at studio-confidential.com. You don't know this because you haven't been on TeaFlix before, but Angie is the limerick lady, and she has a book out called Mrs. McCartney's Liverpool Limericks and Other Random Irish Haikus. And she put pen to paper this morning after we knew that Nico wasn't going to make it because he's sicky poo. So she actually whipped out a quick limerick lyric to honor you for taking the time with us this morning. So if you are sitting comfortably, we will read you your limerick
for the day.
I'm ready.
1, 2, 3. So big thanks to Sylvia Massy, whose wisdom is techie and sassy. And in New York she'll show how the music tides flow. She sure made our TeaFlix look classy.
Ta-da! Don't give up your day job.
There you go.
Thank you, Sylvia. It's been wonderful.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And when your new book comes out, please come back.
Yes.
And
let's do a program on the book.
Let's do it. Absolutely.
You can check out Sylvia at sylviamassy.com. And today's episode was brought to you by Mrs. McCartney's Teas. Tune in wherever you get your podcasts. And thank you, my love, for your time. We'll see you guys all of a sudden.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.